Welcome everyone to our very first Leading Ladies speaker series. And we are joined today by Rachael Tutwiler Fortune, who will be kicking off this amazing set of speaking events, and no better person to kick us off. So my name is Dr. Matt Olson. I am the director of the Taylor Leadership Institute. And my team has been working so hard over the past few months to make this event a reality. So we're so happy that all of you are here. It will be recorded, so you can just enjoy it. You don't have to take notes. You can just really embrace this opportunity. So Rachael will be joining us tonight and just speaking from the heart in terms of what leadership really means. And we can't wait to hear her presentation. And in a few minutes, I'm going to share with you a little bit about our amazing speaker for the evening. But our plan for the evening, we are going to have Rachael share her presentation. Then we'll have an opportunity for some Q&A. And really, we want some engagement from the audience with our attendees. I know it's a mix of students, community members, so this is going to be a lot of fun learning from and with one another. Okay, sound good, everyone? All right. So let me tell you about Rachael. When you think of, education rock stars, and this is, the first person that came to my mind. So Rachael Tutwiler Fortune is the president of the Jacksonville Public Education Fund. And, when you look at her bio, I had to narrow this down there was about 17 paragraphs of accolades and awards and all these different things. So I had to narrow it down in one short paragraph, so I don't take up the entire hour talking about, all the great things that she's done. So Rachael is a UNF alumni, and just that alone makes her amazing, as well as a graduate of Stanford University, where she received her master's in education policy, organization, and leadership. She began her career in the Duval County Schools as a teacher, and has since served in a number of leadership roles in the education, nonprofit, and government agencies, including serving with the U.S. Department of Education during the Obama administration. We are thrilled to have Rachael join us this evening, and hopefully in the fall, where she will be teaching a course with us, hopefully. And we look forward to having her share her presentation titled Making 2021 Your Year. And as part of this, kicking off our Taylor Leadership Institute's Leading Lady speaker series, perfect way to kick us off. So at the very end, like I said, we're also going to have the opportunity for questions, and we really want you to stay engaged in this process. So Rachael, the Zoom is all yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Matt. And hello, everyone. Just thank you so much for tuning in. It is my great privilege and honor to be here with you this evening as a part of this Leading Ladies series. I want to especially thank Dr. Matt Olson and his team at Taylor Leadership Institute for having me. And I just really appreciate the broader UNF family for always being so welcoming and inviting me to come back to the nest. Whenever I'm with UNF, I'm with family, and even though this is a virtual meetup, it is truly a family reunion. So thank you all so very much. It's a timely family reunion from my perspective, because I don't know about you all, but I really needed some space and time to reflect as we concluded 2020. And I needed some time to think about how I was going to approach my life and just take who I am and how I show up and what I do to the next level as we began 2021. And that's what I'd love to talk to you all about tonight. I hope that through my brief remarks, because I definitely want to leave as much time for questions and just conversation as possible, that I can help encourage you to make 2021 your year, because I can guarantee you that I too am laser focused on making this year one that is not only one to remember, but one in which I see growth and progress around various aspects of life that are extremely important to me. So what do I mean about that? You must be asking yourself, how is it possible to make 2021 a special year within which you make very real progress on personal and or professional goals when we're still in the midst of this global coronavirus pandemic, when we are still confronting so many complex and deeply rooted social injustices in our society, when there are just a lot of economic and other uncertainties produced by the aforementioned challenges. And I'm here to tell you this evening, first of all, that I believe our outlook in life greatly impacts our outcomes and the results we produce or don't produce. And I'm also here to just share with you some goals and practices that I believe will allow me to be increasingly effective in living the life I want, in loving the people I care about, in taking care of myself, and in being a good and effective leader. But I wanted to just start by sharing a story about myself. Because when I was a young girl growing up in Jacksonville, it's hometown for me, and I grew up in our inner city, I had what I would describe as a great brain, an inner drive to do something impactful in my life, and a lot of potential. And as life would have it, my family didn't have it easy. We didn't have a lot, but what we did have was each other. And though we weren't perfect, my mom instilled in me the importance of obtaining a good education. And my father exemplified what I consider to be community service at its best. And even still, like a lot of other young people in the neighborhoods I grew up in, I experienced challenges and, found myself drawn into complexities of all too often what it means to grow up as an African American young woman without a lot of resources in communities across our country. Now, my family, we had our own fair share of challenges, and I turned outward for affection and attention at the time and found myself pregnant and raising a son at the age of 16. And I've had a lot of time to process, my journey, and I would say our journey because we've had such a special one together. But that very reality was supposed to equate the end of my dreams, or so the statistics and broadly accepted narrative in communities across our country would have led me to believe that to be the case. Even though I had a great brain, an inner drive to do something impactful with my life and a lot of potential, some of my friends turned away from me. Some educators told me I should lower my expectations for what I would do with my life, or even whether or where I would try to attend college. Clearly, on the latter point, I made the very best choice. My first choice in attending the University of North Florida on a fully funded scholarship. I think I saw Lance Hunt's name in the chat. He was one of my supporters and champions in that time. And I greatly appreciate his support and all of the support I received by the Osprey family. And I was able to excel in school. And while I was in school, I was able to excel in service, community service, and just really trying to be a servant leader in the campus community. And I aspired then, and I continue to aspire to be the very best servant leader that I can as I've continued on the path that I believe I was predestined to take. So what happened? Why wasn't my life over? Although so many people believed and even told me that it ought to be. I'm grateful that when there were forces that tried to darken my outlook on what was possible, there were other forces that encouraged and affirmed my belief in a higher calling, in a greater purpose, and a sense of meaning behind everything I saw and everything I wanted to see in the world. And yeah, it's true. My life was at a critical crossroad, but my life was not over. And my choice to believe in the power of what was possible and to have a positive outlook and to channel what I would describe to be fierce determination to be my best self and to make a true difference in somebody else's life have really beat like what I would describe to be a powerful drum in the backdrop of my life ever since then. And I'll be honest with you, even when you have determination, the most fierce determination and grit, and maintain a positive disposition, there's still going to be challenges. That's just the nature of life and the complexities of life. I take 2020, for example, and I'm sure we can all attest to the fact that 2020 was hard. It brought some things that not any of us expected. and that none of us was able to escape, and working toward the mission rather, that I'm privileged to advance here at the Jacksonville Public Education Fund. We're focused on really closing what we describe to be the opportunity gap for students from disadvantaged backgrounds and communities. And that is, of course, a plight that I know personally well. I have a true deep appreciation of just how much 2020 hit harder for some of us than others. And even in the midst of all of that, I hope that you didn't lose sight of yourself, and that you didn't lose hope, and that you didn't lose your sense of the power of the possible amidst those challenging times. And to be quite honest, I'm sure a lot of people across the world and across our country, just kind of went to bed on December 31st and was just hoping that we would kind of flip the switch and the dream that became 2020 would be over when we got to 2021. But those challenging times, a great deal of them we really still do find ourselves in, quite honestly. But whenever new difficulties and complexities emerge, I remind myself that this isn't my first rodeo. I've been through difficult times before. We've all been through difficult times before and persisted. And not only did we make it out, but we made it through, I like to say. Because what life experience has taught me is that when you make it through challenges that prune you and make you stronger, that make you better, and that propel you toward your purpose. Because each and every last one of us, every person on the planet has a purpose. So how can we navigate such challenging times like the ones we find ourselves in a way that doesn't set us back, but in a way that sets us up to be truly transformational, purpose-driven leaders and influencers in the communities that we find ourselves being a part of? How can we make the most of 2021, even though we haven't yet moved past this global pandemic, injustices and uncertainties that every news outlet is covering every single day, and that has truly changed the very fabric of the way we engage and interact with each other? I want to focus the rest of my talk now on just some goals and practices that define how I'm trying to make 2021 my year. And I hope that you find some of them personally useful as you navigate the next steps of your journey. First, I'll talk about my goals, and I have 4 of them. I want to love well, live well, lead well, and be well. So wellness is the word that I would use to describe how I want to show up in 2021. And to just briefly contextualize these goals, I want to explain something that for some of the UNF students on the line, I hope will help you skip a few of the lessons that I navigated during my early career in life. Because to be completely honest, my own wellness was not my top priority. I have today, and I have always had, a deep conviction to be a servant leader. I thought that meant putting the needs of others before myself. I thought that meant that as long as I was pouring into the lives of others, I was being not only a good person, but also an effective leader. But there is something about nearing the phase of burnout that teaches one that you better make some adjustments or you're not going to make it, or something's going to have to change. And not prioritizing my own wellness meant that I wasn't eating as well as I could, not sleeping as much as I should, not being as physically active as would be optimal for my health, being stressed. And to be completely honest, I didn't even realize that I was doing that to myself as much as I was, because I wasn't thinking about me. I was really thinking about the things that I wanted to do and the good that I was trying to produce for other people who I cared about, because I have a purpose. I thought that as long as I had that positive outlook, good brain, inner drive, and potential that I described earlier, that it would be sufficient to the end of producing the impact I desired. And to be honest, when I think about all of the incredible and impactful opportunities I've had to make a difference, because I've been truly blessed and have tried to take full advantage of every opportunity, those things got me a good distance as a young working, hardworking professional. But by a certain point, I was tired and just pondering the ever-present question that so many of us grapple with each and every day, every time we begin a new year. What does it look like to take it to the next level? And in the midst of a pandemic, societal injustice, and lots of uncertainty, what does it look like to take it to the next level? And my reflection at the end of this last year, 2020, led me to believe that the path to being a better Rachel for myself and for others in 2021 meant prioritizing wellness in every aspect of my life. To be a better Rachel, I literally needed to be a better Rachel, a more whole, a more well Rachel. So that's my goal: to love well, to live well, to lead well, and to be well. I'll take those one at a time and just share a little bit more about how I've processed that and what it means for me. Love well. That means being in the right community and prioritizing your community. Some of us underestimate just how important that is. Not only does prioritizing time with our families, friends, and loved ones make them know just how special and important they are to us, but it's also very good for our own well-being. I thought I saw as well Dr. Panchali on the call as I was looking at the roster earlier, and I was just so inspired by how aligned a call that I was just a part of yesterday with Baptist Health was, in talking about just the importance of community for not only the well-being of the people we care about, but for each of us as individuals. Because in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, whether it's school or work or school and work, keeping us busy, or social media, or the ever playing of the news, especially when you know personally that you've reached your point of saturation and are overwhelmed, it is immensely important for us to fill our cups. And hopefully we don't wait until we've reached a point where we are saturated before we decide to restore and enlighten and love on ourselves. But who is better positioned to do that than the people who care about us the most? It's vitally important for all people to have community. So if you don't believe you have a solid one that you can turn to and who can turn to you, build or seek out the resources that you need to find that right community for you to join and cultivate, and truly commit yourself to cultivating those relationships. My hope personally for myself is that my loved ones see how much energy I'm committed to just providing in our deep, authentic connections and our relationships, because it helps their well-being as well as my own. My second goal is to live well. And for me, this looks like having the peace, happiness, contentment that I expect from my life. And it manifests in a lot of different ways. I'm going to give Matt Olson a shout out now, because he gifted me with a book when we started chatting about my getting engaged with the Taylor Leadership Institute. And the name of that book is Happier. And I have thoroughly enjoyed reading it. It describes how being happier and building a flourishing life is a lifelong pursuit, and how happiness consists of both having the secure knowledge that one is doing things that brings them joy in the present, and knowing that those things also lead to a fulfilling future. And boy, do I love that. The book Happier describes multiple archetypes, one of which is called the rat racer. I was asking Matt and Corey from the Taylor Institute before we called. I was like, is it a webinar format or is it a meeting format? Because I was curious as to whether I was going to be able to ask you guys to raise your hand as to whether you've ever felt like you're constantly on the treadmill and can't catch up and can't catch a break. And so I'll be the one to raise my hand because I can tell you that I have been guilty as charged. It's kind of in my nature, to be honest with you, to stay busy doing something that I think will make a difference, because future only oriented thinking prohibits one from asking themselves what they need today, right now. But what I've learned is that our impact, it doesn't start tomorrow. We're somebody today, and we're becoming somebody, becoming the next developed version of ourselves every single day that we walk the face of this earth. And how we show up and how we treat ourselves in the midst of advancing goals that we've set for our future really matters. So for folks who have rat racer tendencies, like I will admit I myself sometimes have, I love that the book points out some very concrete things that you can do to build rituals that can help you adopt new behaviors and break old habits. Oftentimes, we talk about having or lacking self-discipline, and I believe that that's way too judgmental a frame. It's kind of like you either have self-discipline or you don't have it. I believe that every person is capable of building those rituals and defining very precise behaviors and performing them at very specific times, deeply motivated by our own values. I shared with my cast group, I believe some of them are on the line tonight. We talked about during our last call, just vision boards and our visions for ourselves. And I have a practice every year of developing a vision board with my family. And we each do our own individual boards, and then we have a collective process of really trying to figure out what the common themes are and what our collective goals are. And one of the visions on my 2021 vision board, I describe how living well for me looks like taking daily time for worship and meditation, finding time to sit in front of the ocean regularly, which I thoroughly enjoy, journaling and reading 12 books at least this year. And some of the books I have are pretty hefty in their length. I'll probably read many more than that. But having and faithfully executing my own personal just self-care and beauty routine, and just being very disciplined about saving and having what I call my cleanest home ever. And listed out the way I just did, listing those things, it kind of sounds and feels like a lot, but I'm so proud that because this is my vision of living well, and it's what I want to be able to do. And I've established routines that help me live the quality of life that I want and that I believe with my whole heart I deserve. And again, going back to loving well, I'm not going at it alone. I've enlisted the support of my tribe, as I like to call them, my partner, my son, my friends and colleagues as appropriate, to join or support or cheer me on to do some of these things very consistently. I have morning, evening, and weekend rituals that help me to stay on par with the vision that I've established for myself. And I believe that's critically important as well. So that's two: love well, live well. Lead well is the third one. This is the Taylor Leadership Institute, after all. And at its core, leadership is influence, and it's how we use influence. In constantly committing myself to leading well, I'm committing myself to the understanding that the change I desire and seek in the world begins with me. So the inequities that I'm so passionate about addressing in our communities and in society lead me to inventory my life and to inventory myself all the time. And to ask myself, where can I do better and how can I be better? I believe with my whole heart that real leadership and the best leaders are constantly learning and constantly growing, and that we never kind of get a mentality of like we've arrived, because life truly is a journey. Even when we're doing what we might define or what someone might define as well, or when we're at our quote unquote best, there is always room for improvement. And the community and well life rituals that I described in my other two goals are also critically important to my leadership too. Because as a leader, I need other leaders. I need some leaders who share the same type of role that I'm in. I need some leaders who share the same type of lived experiences as I've had. I need some leaders who have been where I believe I have the potential to go as I continue throughout my life's journey. I need all of those individuals in my tribe. And in 2021, I'm committed to leveraging those relationships to help me grow each and every day in my leadership. They say that iron sharpens iron, and I definitely believe it. And as I navigate my own leadership journey, if I'm not introspective, then growth is not possible. And that's why the journaling, reading the books that I picked out for myself, spending time in worship and meditation and on the water are critically important here too. Those are the strategies that I've chosen to do regularly to facilitate my looking inward on what I'm learning as I navigate this season. And then last, but certainly not least, being well. And I bet we can all kind of guess what that one is all about. I'm really committed in this season to being much more physically active and eating so much better. And that's one of the things that is very important to me as we begin this new year. And I expect to see the results that come along with that. I'm not on some special diet or exercise plan. I really believe that, again, if you change habits and really just put in place the processes and the things that you can do long-term as opposed to kind of a short-term thing, that it will allow you to be healthier and happier. And so when I tell you I'm really proud of how I've faithfully been executing my routines, I have my daily 6:30 a.m. 21-minute cardio that I'm doing on throughout the work week. So Monday through Friday, I bought an exercise bike and told myself I can only watch my shows when I'm on it. And they say it takes 21 days to break a habit. And I've broken away from some of the things that I don't want to be a part of my regular diet anymore. I'm really proud because I understand just how much and why the choices I make today will impact my longevity. And I want to be around to do good for a very long time. I'm blessed today to have two beautiful children and an amazing husband, some lifelong and newer friends, some colleagues and trusted advisors, some incredible mentees who inspire me and make me want to be a good example for them. Shout out to my UNF cast group members who are on the line. We are the best group. It's a competition between all the different cast groups. My son, like some of you, is in college now. He's 19, and we have shared such a remarkable journey. I love him with my whole heart. He's been a catalyst for me just wanting to be the best version of myself for such a long time. And I have a beautiful daughter who's going to turn 2 next month. And they both need a well mommy. Every person whose life I'm a part of needs a well Rachel, and everyone who's a part of your tribe needs a well you. And so all of those who are connected to the Taylor Leadership Institute and took the time to be on this call tonight, I believe you're all leadership inspired, and you probably, in some cases, just had such tremendous impact already. And as we all lead in 2021, I deeply believe that these times call for us to be well and committed to our own well-being as we seek to do all the good we possibly can. So I hope some aspect of what I've shared here helps you on your journey and helps you make 2021 truly your year. Thank you. I'll turn it to any questions you have now.
Rachel, that was absolutely fantastic, and I know on behalf of my students and staff and community members who are joining us today, that was inspirational. I know some, made me want to read more books. Get on that 6:30 morning routine for cardio. So you've inspired all of us. So thank you so much. And we're going to open up the questions. I know we're going to do this live, but I have a few questions that a few of my students sent to me beforehand. So if you don't mind, I'd like to share those with you. So Rachael, who are your mentors in your life, and what impact did they have on your growth, and who you are and the leader you've become?
That is such a beautiful question. I would say that I have a lot of different types of mentors. The first kind of group of mentors I would say is just people who have been with me on this journey of life for a very long time. I very much look up to, admire, appreciate the influence that my former pastor and first lady have had on my life. You know, I mentioned earlier on just being at that critical crossroad when I was younger, having my son when I was younger. And it was really through their influence and just affirmation and speaking good and positive things on me that I just came to believe that, you know, there was a higher calling and purpose on my life. And so, you know, I will never forget and will always be so grateful for the role they played in my life then. And I'm just so grateful that and when I see them now, you know, they always talk about how proud they are of me. I have had some incredible instructors and professors and teachers. You know, we had a big celebration at JPEF yesterday, Teacher of the Year celebration. And I really believe in the power of educators to make a difference in the lives of their students. And I have had just such incredible mentors at every step of my academic journey. I also, you know, have tried to find people who, again, are involved in things that I either am interested in doing or, you know, am currently involved in, and just to reach out and make those relationships, and have been fortunate to, you know, really meet some incredible people who have inspired me in that way as well. So that's how I would probably describe some of the mentors I've had.
Excellent, Rachel. Thank you so much. And questions are coming in. I'll share one more from the group that sent them in earlier. How and when did you first know that you were a leader?
That's a good question. You know, it's an interesting question too, because I don't really go around calling myself a leader, you know, first and foremost, but I I'll say that from a very young age, I was always trying to do stuff. I'm going to describe it in two phases. I'm going to say, you know, as a small child, you know, I reflect now in elementary school, just being involved in a lot of stuff. And I've had this conversation with my own parents as well, just about like, you know, when did that start? When, you know, where did that come from? Like, why was I always trying to do and be a part of things to help kind of facilitate the group or whatever. In elementary school, I think I was, you know, president of the Ladies of Carter G, and, you know, involved in the Brain Brawl Club, and, you know, just lots of different activities. But I'll say, even though that bug was, you know, clear and evident, and there was some foundation from that phase, I would say wholeheartedly, when I was a student at UNF, that's when I really believe I learned the most about, it just laid the foundation for me wanting to be a public servant and to get involved and to help facilitate my, you know, just groups of peers, and just to help us all kind of take our become the best version of ourselves while we could while we were in school. I had the privilege at UNF of, I actually got involved, and I don't know, let me see if Mr. Hunt is still on. I remember my freshman year, I became the, oh, he is, the Miss AASU, which I never knew I was going to get involved in the campus community at all. I had a small child and was working and, you know, wanted to get good grades. So it wasn't really my intention to get super involved, but I became Miss AASU. And then, and Mr. Hunt, I think, was on the panel of people when I was a contestant for that. And so got on the homecoming court, took my responsibilities as Miss ASU very seriously. And because of that, I think my peers saw leadership potential in me as well and encouraged me to apply for agency leadership. So my junior year at UNF, I became the assistant director of the ASU. Then that was my sophomore year, excuse me. And then my junior year, the director, and had no aspiration at all. I know sometimes students come in really inclined and desiring to run for student body president or something, but that was not something that I was necessarily looking to do. But enough of my peers saw something in me, apparently, based on how I was showing up on campus, and asked me if I thought if I was thinking about running. And, you know, if enough people ask you something, then you kind of ask yourself, should I be thinking about that? And then you might think about it and pray about it. And that's what I did in that case, and decided to run, and, you know, won in the narrowest victory, probably still to this day in UNF history, and became the second African-American female to serve as UNF student body president. So I think, you know, one of the things that always sparks me when I reflect on that is just how humbled I was, and you know, continue to be, that my peers saw that in me. And both from when I was Miss ASU and just wanted to do a good job as Miss ASU and being encouraged to apply for agency leadership, to then people seeing how much I was pouring into those leadership roles and asking me if I was considering running for student body president. And so that was very much foundational in real practice. I believe a lot of what I learned at UNF is still very applicable in my professional career today.
Excellent, Rachel. That's fantastic. And as these questions come in, there was actually one that actually wasn't a question, but it was just a statement around one of your cast family. It says something about Team Madeline.
Oh.
All right, so you're getting some you know, passionate support from your cast team. So what a great influence that team is seeing from you. So I appreciate it. So let's go into the questions. So what books do you suggest for young women embarking on a leadership journey? Any books that stand out for you?
Yeah. Well, there are lots of good books. I'll say, you know, I'm a big Michelle Obama fan. And so if you have not read Michelle Obama's Becoming, it's a must read. She is so vulnerable and authentic, and just shares so many real stories from her own journey. So I would definitely encourage you to read that. On my list for just going back and rereading this year, I want to go back and kind of reread the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. I think that's a really good one. The book that Matt Olson shared with me, Happier, I thought that was a really good one. So thank you for that, Matt. My husband bought a book for me, which kind of goes back to my just natural tendency to just be trying to do so much and to be on at all times, called Drop the Ball. So that's on my list this year. I'm very curious as to what I'm going to get out of that book, but just encouraging me to, you know, I guess not always feel like I have to make sure everything is perfect all the time. And then, you know, my colleague, I think I saw she's on, Veronica Session Fennell. I was just talking to her as we're preparing to launch a young professionals group at JPEF about a book called Designing Your Life. And it really is a nice orientation to design thinking, which is, you know, something out of the D School at Stanford, and a couple of other, you know, groups that have been really innovative in those practices, but just being very human-centered in designing solutions. I think all of those are really good reads. And I read that one a while ago, but I have it on my list to go back to this year as well.
Excellent, Rachel. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know that might add to our list at the Taylor Leadership Institute for our students to embark on. So our next question, how do you manage burnout while also trying to continually improve? Great question, Grace.
Yeah. You know, I think that we know ourselves better than anybody. And when your body is telling you that you're doing too much, it's just really important to listen. And so in terms of, you know, managing burnout, I would say, you know, when you get those cues from your body that you need to take a time out, or you need to take a break, or you need to slow down, it's really important to listen. For me, that might look like giving myself permission to take a day off or, you know, again, prioritizing those things that make me feel well and, you know, allows me to pause. And even if you can't, you know, take a break, you know, you have classes, you know, they're very just simple, quick things that, you know, you can do that are healthy and that help you kind of reset your own energy and to put you in a space of wellness. And, you know, my Apple Watch here reminds me regularly, like, take a breath, you know, like take a deep breath. So if you're ever in a moment where you're feeling really stressed or have lots of anxiety or whatever the case may be, just, you know, listening to yourself and being responsive and taking that pause and that break and breathing, or, you know, there are other tools like, you know, stress balls and things of that nature that, you know, we see all the time, and, you know, people pass them out at different tables at UNF when we're not in COVID. But all of those are really helpful, you know, resources. So I guess I would answer that question by saying, know yourself, listen to your body, because your body is not lying to you if it's telling you you need to slow down. And also, kind of like we talked about here tonight, just developing those healthy practices. And knowing, you know, I talked tonight as well about how much I love water. I do love water. My husband and I go and spend quality time on the water just because how much I love it. Regularly, we're both Floridians. He's from Miami. And some other people might have other things that they do that make them feel centered. And, you know, really just being present with those things when you're with them are very healthy practices. So when I'm looking at the Atlantic Ocean, or, you know, even the pool in my neighborhood, I just want to be present with that water. I'm going to turn off everything else, and there's plenty of stuff for me to be thinking about. But when I allow myself to turn off like that in those moments, and then to come back recharged, fresher brain, fresher thinking, then I'm, you know, that much better for it and able to contribute more to whatever it is that I'm doing. Another practice for me that I found, and this is probably a common one too, but just taking a nice long drive is really therapeutic and helpful, because I can disconnect from everything that's going on and just give myself time to be present with whatever it is I'm thinking. And Matt, before you go to the next question, I just wanted to clarify for you. And I love to the team Madeline folks on the call as well. That'll be one of our other cast groups.
I love it. I love it. And one of the nice things for the next question, I think you answered it. Dorian asked, there's so much structure in your life in terms of that balance and maintaining family and work and all those different things. And the question focused on the idea of how do you engage in activities that move away from that structure? And I think you just touched upon it perfectly with that idea of something simple. It doesn't require you to take a, you know, lengthy vacation. It could be something as simple as going to sit by the pool or you know, go to the ocean, and take some time for you to find that balance and move away from that structure, because it's so hard being the leader that you are, that so many people depend on you, that you also have to make sure you have time for yourself and find that balance and just find your happy place where you can go and just sit and look at the ocean. So that's great. And I think it's so valuable for our students to hear that, because they're always looking for, you know, the next to-do list and all the different activities they have to do. And I think sometimes they forget that we go to school and live where people vacation. So that idea of really taking advantage of the beauty all around us. So Rachel, thank you for that reminder.
No, thank
Excellent.
you.
All right, so last question. Can you talk about chances or risks that you've taken during your journey, your growth? And what have you learned from that? And how do you embrace risk and taking chances?
That's a good question too. And I'll be, you know, if my husband were on the line, he would probably say that I am hopeful. Hopefully he would say that I've, you know, grown in my appetite for risk, because I wouldn't say historically I've much of a risk taker. I mentioned how I am from Jacksonville and wanted very much to stay in school or in town for school when I transitioned to UNF, and I began my professional career here. So I taught at SP Livingston, which is a school right around the corner from where my grandmother grew up. And from there, I actually came to the organization I now work for. That was my first stint because this is my second time here. And it was important for me as a young mom to be in a familiar enough environment for my young son. And so I would say one of the first times that I feel like I really kind of pushed myself to do something that was fully outside of my box is when, we decided, my husband and I, to apply to graduate school on the West Coast. We applied to a lot of different places, and that was a huge risk. I loved the work that I was doing here at JPEF before. We were leading some impactful work to really engage the community's voice around the needs of our students and where we wanted to see our public schools grow. And can you imagine, hopefully, lots of folks on the call have lived in other places, but it was a huge risk to quit a job I loved, pack up literally my whole life in a U-Haul and sell some stuff, and to drive across the country and go to school, and to kind of, in many respects, begin again. And what I learned from that experience, because after I left, it was such an enlightening journey, right? I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what's going on in education policy and practices all around the country. I saw more of the world, just in terms of being able to live in other places. And I stretched and I grew, and I definitely believe I became a better, more informed. I kind of had a bigger, a sense of how much bigger the world was than the bubble that I was necessarily in at the time. And so that was, an invaluable experience for me. And had I not taken the leap and left and taken the risk and to reset my life, and I would not have had, I'm sure, access to the opportunities that transition afforded me. Did some work out there at Oakland Unified School District before moving to Washington, D.C. during the second half of President Obama's administration, and worked at the U.S. Department of Education then, and had the privilege and pleasure of serving state education agencies as they were implementing Race to the Top grant initiatives, multi-million-dollar grant efforts, and other education policy efforts. And it was definitely a great way to stretch. And guess what? I knew when the call came for me to come back to Jacksonville, because of my passion and love for this city, that a part of my call was to come back. But had I not stretched myself to go and grow, I wouldn't have as much insight and knowledge that I'm now able to bring to the work I do in leading our organization. And so that is a good example of just being willing to step outside of the box. I think that risk taking is very important when you know that is something that you're feeling compelled or kind of called to do. At that time, it was very clear to me that my next step was supposed to be in California when we left here, because my now husband actually proposed the same weekend that we both found out we got into school over there. So talk about divine, clear, just signs that this is what you're supposed to do. So I'm very grateful that, kind of the stars aligned in that way to make it clear that we should take this leap together and kind of broaden our horizons. That's what happens when you take risks, is you learn and you grow.
Rachel, perfect. Thank you so much. And great questions by the group of attendees and students and folks here on this amazing Zoom tonight. So Rachel, we just, on behalf of the Taylor Leadership Institute and my team, my TLI family, we cannot thank you enough for kicking off our whole series. And really just sharing your wisdom and leadership with us. We're so thrilled that you were a part of it, and looking forward to having you part of our TLI family and team moving forward. So Thank you so much for leading us tonight, and what a great event. So thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you all so much for being here. It really, really means a lot that you would take the time out of your Thursday evening to come.
Excellent.